Hello, everyone. Welcome into another edition of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Tony Sapita, and I'm joined by co-host Nick Barr. How you doing today, Nick?
Oh, feeling fantastic. Good start to the year. Good start to the season. Um, Nothing like beating up on the beautiful city of Cleveland for the first go at the season here, right?
I couldn't agree more. Joakim Noah agrees. He had that awesome Instagram post making fun of Cleveland earlier in the week. And just today in general, we're talking about the arrival of Chi Slamma Jamma, as Stacey King would say. That's right. The new look Chicago Bulls are here. We're discussing the absolute show they put on tonight against the Cavs in the preseason game, for what it's worth.
You got to give it up to Stacy. He put on a show too.
Oh, he absolutely did.
He had that one in the chamber, and I mean, it was beautiful when he let it go.
He was going to run out of nicknames and like catchphrases by the end of the game.
Or his breath, man. That guy was gassed, and it was awesome. He was putting his heart and soul into it. It was beautiful.
I couldn't agree more. But before we get into all that, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Stupid Card Tray. I have a tray. It works. And if you want to enjoy Bulls games at home or on the road even more, head out to www.stupidcardtray.com and use code J16, JAY16 at checkout to get 16% off. The link is in the description. All right, Nick, let's talk about our Bulls. So first off, I know I came in hot there, a little Chi Slamma Jamma saying how good the Bulls are. I know it's just preseason, game one against a horrible, horrible Cavs team, which I didn't even recognize some of the guys out there. Never seen them before in my life.
Oh, yeah, that was tough, man. That was really tough. And Laurie was getting absolutely bullied out there. He couldn't buy it. I mean, he couldn't buy a bucket. He couldn't buy a dribble past one of our guards, basically. It's kind of, I mean, it's like Denzel. It's funny to like hate on him because he's just so blindly confident, but like Laurie, he's not really doing anything wrong. He's not saying anything wrong, but you can tell. At least it gives us the affirmation. We're like, I'm glad we got rid of him, and glad we moved forward. And now he's the Cavs' problem, and the Cavs have a lot of problems. But I agree. We're not trying to overreact. The Bulls have something special going here, I think. But yeah, the Cavs, I mean, they were absolutely abysmal.
Yeah, no, it was almost gross to watch. If the Bulls weren't playing, I definitely would not have watched. I'll tell you that. But if you even watched a minute of this game, any of you out there, you heard Stacey King losing his mind over this team. So it's hard not to be excited after tonight. So kind of, Nick, we can just kind of get into it. What was your biggest kind of question, I guess, going into the game that you kind of wanted answered?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the lineup. The lineup question, just with P. Will being out. We know he's moving along pretty well. We don't know if we're going to have to worry about this when the season actually tips off. But for now, it's interesting to see what Billy's going to do with the lineup. And in this case, he went with Lonzo, Levine, and DeRozan, obviously, and then Javonte Green, and then Vooch. And, of course, in just another year of Chicago fashion, we had a few last-minute injuries. I was like, oh, here we go, right? And this was before they put that absolute licking on the Cavs. But, Derek Jones Jr., who I thought was going to be kind of favored by Billy just based on the praise that he's been getting in camp and stuff. I thought he was going to be placed in there. So seeing that he had a sprained left ankle, apparently we didn't really know about that. Must have just happened. I think that's when he probably decided to put Javonte Green in there. And boy, I mean, he absolutely thrived, man. He was all over. We'll talk about him a little bit more later, but he was all over not just the defensive floor, but he was all over the putbacks. He was the one helping, Lonzo run the break. And let me say, I mean, Lonzo was pushing it right from the jump. So everything that Billy kind of was hoping for, I think, in those media day interviews kind of came to fruition, if you ask me. So great start, but the lineup could stay the same with that sort of performance from Javonte, but I'd imagine he'll play around with it a little bit more. Clearly, when you got Caruso in there, that lineup was super fun. And I'd be hard pressed to see us closing out games without that lineup, but definitely a statement made, by Javonte Green. But I think Billy's probably going to play around a little bit more with the lineup.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you mentioned it too. This team is fun. Like at the very least, I know we said that last year. We said that probably the last couple of years, like, oh, it'll be a fun team. This is truly a fun team. This is like, they're not the Warriors, but how the Warriors are fun because the ball moving and stuff, not just because they're kind of funny guys running around out there like the Bulls have had in the past.
Right.
Like this team they move the ball fast, they shoot well, they're throwing up alley-oops to each other. So that's the best part. They're just going to bring excitement every single night. DeMar's looking great out there. He's not just, doing the little fadeaway jump shots from the elbow like everyone was saying, like, oh, he's just it's a
Right.
pull-up jumper guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and obviously he can score. I mean, like we've talked about previously, I mean, he can create his own bucket, which is great. But to see him, and even at his age, still out there running with Lonzo and Levine, I mean, that's awesome to see too. So yeah, definitely, I think lineup is the biggest thing to look out for still. But just knowing that we can kind of play around with it because we have some solid bench players now. That was a question mark going into. I think we should feel pretty good about.
Yeah, definitely. And so I guess what was your biggest takeaway from this game, from the performance tonight? I know again it's Cavs game one, blah blah blah, but what did you see out there?
Yeah, I think mostly would be like the Lonzo, Caruso, Levine, DeRozan, and Vooch lineup. I mean, that boy, if they play like that, and if we're shooting from three like the way we were, I mean, I don't see a whole lot of teams beating us now. Of course, like you said, we got to take it with a grain of salt. But that's not in our vernacular in this situation. We're excited. I think just seeing Caruso sharing the ball, Lonzo and Caruso clearly have some serious chemistry there, and it shows on the floor too. And then Levine, obviously, I mean, like we've said, he glides down the floor, so he can mesh with anyone. So I think that's my biggest takeaway is seeing that lineup. They're going to be closing out our games. I'd be interested to see if they are even, are even our starting lineup. So we'll see how they play with that. I mean, I love, like I said, Stacey absolutely losing his voice. I mean, this was before the first half even came to a close on that, no look pass from Caruso to Levine for the slam. You gotta love it. I mean, and Adam, of course, he was losing his stuff, his voice as well. But we know Billy's happy. I mean, he was talking all this stuff about, we can't just focus on the points. We got to play defense. Well, they forced 15 turnovers in the first half, and we were playing at a high pace and only had 3 turnovers. Those are the kind of stats that's going to make the coach happy. And if the coach is happy, the team's happy, right? We know that, unfortunately, at the end of the day. So that you can't ask for a better performance than in my eyes. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so you mentioned their 3-point shooting. I think they were 10 for 24 at the end of the first half, which is insane. And then they opened it up more. Of course, then the scrubs already from the Cavs were in anyway, because that's just their entire team. But they really emptied the bench, and of course they really piled it on. We're actually recording before the very end of the game. I think it was last I saw it was 135 to 86. Just absolutely.
I mean, who would have thought we could get cocky like this? Trust me, we've had most years we wouldn't dream of this, but the final score did end up it ended up being 131 to 95, and that probably doesn't even do it real justice. Because I think the Bulls had 113 points at the end of the third. Played about 2.5 quarters with our starting group, or our main guys. Caruso out there too. He had 10 assists, by the way, which kind of caught me out of nowhere. I mean, I know it was awesome, all that back and forth, but I wouldn't have guessed 10 assists. So I think a lot of great takeaways from this, but like you said at the beginning, it is the Cavs. So we want, and we'll be playing them again shortly. So we do want to keep that in mind. But yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you. I think I'm excited, and I think a lot of other people are too. Twitter was blowing up for the Chicago, for the Windy City.
Oh yeah, Bulls are back. And that, I guess my one real takeaway, because obviously it helps to shoot against a bunch of bums out there, but that chemistry, you mentioned it. They are just, like you said, the no look passes. Yes, anyone can pass to another guy, but when you're doing no look alley-oop passes, it looks like you've played together for 5 years. These guys have done one kind of probably COVID training camp. My apologies. So that was awesome to see. These guys are already gelling. They're smiling. They're having a great time. And that's great to see. So our last topic here. So kind of, obviously we saw all the big boys show out, DeMar, Levine, Lonzo, Vooch. But the preseason is all about kind of finding out who your good depth pieces are and what you have in your bench. So Nick, besides the main guys that I mentioned, and we'll throw Caruso out too, because he was awesome, and everyone knows he was. Who stood out to you the most
Fan
tonight?
favorite. Yeah, Javante Green for sure, man. I mean, um, not only do I just, have a lot of respect for him, he's got the best number. 24 is my favorite number for all you fans at home. So but really how he lit up the scoreboard. And like I said, I think a guy like Billy's really gonna appreciate a guy doing it on both ends of the floor like that. Not only was he out in front of the fast break, like I said, Lonzo was, throwing bombs to him, but he was also, I mean, he had like two block. I remember he had like, I think that span of like, it was like 30 seconds on the clock, but he had two blocks, a couple blocks, both in the first half, 8 rebounds, 13 points. He was in the right place at the right time. And even Troy Brown Jr., man, I think that would be another one. He had 9 quick points in the first half when we were just on that crazy run. And then obviously putting in that, our Showtime Bulls lineup, right? That's what blew the doors open. So, but I think Troy Brown, he was able to mesh, but I think Javante Green would be the biggest takeaway of a guy that not only earned his spot, but might be earning some serious playing time.
Yeah, no, he's
I mean,
definitely gonna,
playing,
yeah, he's gonna for
like that.
sure fill in for Patrick Williams, I would imagine. I mean, again, game one, we'll see going forward, but I mean, right now he's earned that four spot right there for Patrick Williams, at least while he's out for the next couple of weeks. Obviously, Patrick Williams is going to get first dibs on it coming back. That's just how it works. However, sixth man of the year, potentially up there. Who knows? Maybe we'll update that in November going forward.
Yeah. I think for my kind of final thought, it kind of going in here, I think a lot of our question marks, of course, lay with, all right, will they gel? Will they share the ball? The normal things you have when you get some big superstars on a roster together in an offseason. Of course, you're going to get that. But I think the biggest question for, Bulls was really what's our bench going to do? And now that hopefully Javante Green can keep this up, and even if Troy Brown can, make the team and show out like he did, not only do we have Caruso, coming off the bench, presumably, I mean, I'm assuming he will be, but we got a couple other guys that can hopefully add some depth, and that's going to be a huge, huge game changer. And of course, I think, okay, my final thought is who's going to back up Vooch? Alize Johnson played a little bit. He played pretty well. I don't know if I just feel like the drop off there is pretty strong. So that's going to be what I'm probably looking out for the most in the next game here is, who's going to show up, what big man's going to show up when, if he's not, and he might not be playing as much minutes next game since they played him quite a bit. So that would be what I'm looking out for. I don't know about you, Tony, but I am definitely excited, especially at this rate. And we're just going to ignore the fact that it's one game. It felt like a lot more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we don't want to overreact here, but hopefully Lori Lightfoot is on the phone with that Teamsters union going over the logistics of a Bulls championship parade in June. That goes to what? UC to, Soldier Field? We'll figure it out when we get there. But with that, that'll do it for another episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Tony Sapita. Thank you again to my co-host, Nick Barr. Thanks for tuning in. Till next time, everyone, keep seeing red.